All right. Says we're live. Let's go to YouTube and make sure, because that's what we do.
Got to make sure all the pieces are in place.
Yes. Do you see us?
I was just about to click.
Okay, I see us now.
Do you? Okay.
Yes.
Because I was going to click the link from Twitter.
Got it. Hello, friends. Say hi when you get here. We're just sharing it out to Twitter so that people will get here.
Looks like we've got Jeff.
Yay! Super roommate. We love to have the super roommate in the house. All right. So, hi guys. Welcome. I'm Shay. This is Shay Geeks Out. If you're new, welcome. I would love it if you would subscribe and do all the things associated with subscribing.
Do it.
My lovely co-host over here is Miss April from over at April Sarah. We've been doing this book club for almost 2.5 years now, which is kind of weird to think about.
Oh, but yeah.
Been online friends for like 5 years now, which again is weird in its own way. Also, so yeah. Anyways, this is the first time in the history of our book club that we have done not a traditional format for a book. Mm-hmm. We did a manga this month, and honestly, like, I was thriving and living my best life because I am so attached to this series. But I was so excited when April was very much open. She's the one who suggested that we do it, and I'm just like, oh, yay. I was so happy because manga is something clearly I'm very passionate about if you look behind me. So bringing it into this project, I think this is the perfect series to do it with. So I'm going to turn it over to April. She can tell you a little bit about Requiem of the Rose King, or at least the base of where we start, because it's kind of its own entity once we enter.
Yes. So as I was pitched this manga series by Shay, Requiem of the Rose King. This is a retelling, reimagining, kind of piggybacking off of Shakespeare's, what is it, Richard III?
Yes. And Henry VI.
Yes, and the retelling of the whole War of the Roses. That's all I knew. That's literally all I knew. And I know very little of that actual part of history. So went into this not knowing a lot. And I have to say, I am loving the take they have on Richard III.
Right?
Because after as I was reading this, I was also like backing it up with like the history and Shakespeare's interpretation and all that kind of stuff. So in the retelling by the victor of the War of the Roses, Richard III was always depicted as having a deformity of some kind. And this manga series takes that concept of a deformity and creates this whole like backstory arc of what that possibly means in a completely different way that I love so much. It's the trope that I am like driven to the most when it comes to manga, and I think Shay knew this. So the fact that this is going to go into spoilers now.
This is my spoiler. It's going to be spoiled. Peace out. But we're going to spoil everything in the first 3 volumes because there is so much to discuss. Mm-hmm.
So Richard III in this story, through the first couple of volumes, you're trying to figure out what is going on because his mother is constantly calling him the demon child, and there's like this weird connection with his dad. And then you come to start to learn that the whole reason that Richard thinks he is deformed, that he's a demon, and his body isn't correct is because he is female. Or part female.
Technically, Richard has parts of both. The upper half is female, the lower half is male.
Well, and see, and that's kind of, they leave it like weirdly under interpretation in these first 3 volumes.
If you pay attention to how Joan speaks about it, this is one thing I wanted to like.
Okay.
So,
because I was wondering if he was a hermaphrodite. And that was some of the stuff that was being hinted at, because it's within these first 3 volumes, you're figuring things out with Richard.
So yes, right here in volume 1, I think it's chapter 2 at the latest. It says it's Joan of Arc, the ghost of Joan of Arc, who plays a more prevalent part than you would ever think in this series. It's, oh my gosh. Anyways, she says, Richard, it's impossible. Not with that body. You're not a boy. That said, you're not a girl either. Right there is proof that it's both, and there's more confirmation of that later. But
yeah, well, and that's what I was wondering, because part of my brain, I'm like, are they a hermaphrodite, or is that a play on they've been brought up as a boy, but there's girl parts, and so there's a conflict of soul and body going on, so there was both male and female that way. But I was wondering if it was more of a physical of both.
That's what I'm remembering. I will have to check later volumes and fact check myself.
Okay.
As far as I remember, it's hermaphrodite.
Okay. So the fact that is like...
But either way, Richard has breasts, and people are finding out.
That's a huge part on this, at least these first 3 volumes, is there are various different points in which these kind of revelations happen. We have at least Edward Lancaster, who has a whole like introduction to this concept, and now is like utterly confused with himself. And then
yet attracted to Richard.
Exactly. And then,
throughout the course of this series, everybody thirsts after Richard. It's just a thing. So just expect it as you move forward.
Okay, so I have to say, it is I found myself weirdly attached to the relationship that we got to see between Richard and Henry.
Right?
In these first 3 volumes. So we've got, what is it, Henry? Is it Henry the Fourth? Or is it... What?
He's Henry the Sixth.
Henry the Sixth. Okay. I knew it was the V and the I, one direction or the other. I couldn't remember off the top of my head.
He's the
So it's Henry the Sixth and Richard get to know each other, but they don't know they are each other.
They don't know. Like, there's almost a Romeo and Juliet-esqueness to this, because they don't know that they are each other's like arch enemies and on the side of this conflict that is happening around them. Richard is named after their father and very much has this almost weird like attachment to their father, because they were cast out by their mother. Like, their mother did not acknowledge Richard at all. And so it's one of those things where Richard II acknowledged Richard III, and it became this almost weirdly obsessive kind of relationship between the two of them, to the point that it got slightly uncomfortable at one point. Like, I'm just gonna be honest, like, it's slightly uncomfy, and there are slightly uncomfy things throughout the whole series. But that's part of why I love it, because this mangaka was not afraid to go there. They set it all up, and they took all the proper steps. So I need my notebook now, because I'm jumping all over the place.
Yeah. All
right. Because, I took notes, even though this was a reread for me. Because, that's just how things are. So, yeah, we've talked about how Richard was basically, like, abandoned by their mother in the woods, but Richard II takes Richard in. It says, this child is now named Richard with my name, so that his wife wouldn't do anything to the child as long as he was living, at least. And that Richard is considered a demon because they're neither male nor female. And Richard also has unique eyes. We haven't brought that up yet. Like, one eye is different than the other. And I think that is more where the demon stuff came out, because as a baby, all of those parts wouldn't really have been as noticeable. I mean, right. Babies don't typically have breasts. Let's be real here. So I think it was more the eye deformity when they were young that classified them as a demon child. But as things evolve later, things evolve and grow and whatnot. But then we've got Henry, who very much like all Henry wants is a peaceful life as a shepherd. He doesn't want the crowd.
Mhm.
He doesn't want the conflicts. He just wants to live in the middle of nowhere and raise sheep. That's what Henry wants. And I love Henry for that. But Henry, sadly, has a power-hungry wife and complicates his life. So, yeah, like, oh, it's so good. And there's so many things. I would say it's a heterochromia. Like, it's different colored for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I actually love the way that was revealed in this first volume. I gotta see if I can find the page easy.
Well, and that was kind of, yeah, because so that was the first indication that this may be a body that's divided on itself. And that's the start of the deformity that is this whole thing. And you mentioned like Henry. The whole part about Henry in history is the fact that he was always seen as a weak king, which is part of the reason all of this really started going down. But the fact that they gave him the hint of the backstory that he has, which explains a little bit besides the inbreeding that happened to make this poor boy the way he is.
Right. Like, there's just so many moments. Like, here Henry is crying because he hates his life. And then Richard's over here, like, shocked because Henry's seeing their eye and they're shocked that they're feeling things and blushing. Mm-hmm. And it's just this whole thing. Elliot, hi, love. How are you? Like, my history buff right here. Like, oh, thank you for the history correction, sir. But yes, anyways, Elias will fact check us as we go through here. But
yeah,
I am so attached to Richard and Henry that it's not even funny. Like, oh, my heart. Like, I'm attached to so many of these characters, and this series is brutal. When people die, they stay dead. For the most part, I should say. Well,
it's because it is loosely following the events of history and some of the mysteries around the War of the Roses. And yeah, this was a very bloody time in English history where you have the Yorks and the Lancasters just like trying to get the crown and establishing themselves as royal blood. And so, I mean, just within this first 3 volumes, we lose Richard III's dad, who had just become king himself. Yeah. And then at the end of this 3rd volume, we are left thinking possibly is Henry dead. Because we have the 2 guys from the inn claiming to have his head. So we don't get to see anything yet. And, I think one of the things in history is that Henry comes back and gets his throne for a little while again, and then just kind of at some point disappears in history, if I'm getting my facts established correctly. So it will be interesting to see how a lot of Shakespeare's interpretations, history's interpretations, and the mangaka's interpretations.
And my heart could not be happier that this is happening. Like, I love that the series is getting more exposure. There will be an anime starting this fall, which I am super excited about because we haven't even touched on the art of this series. Like, can we just? Like, it is stunning to like the nth degree. Here's Henry and here's Richard. Like, we love to see it. We love the art in this. Ayakano is swiftly becoming one of my favorite mangaka. Like, it's just so pretty. I can't even. I went 13, but like, you'll just have to look at my collection if you want to see it. It's like spoilery, so I'm going to leave it. I purposely had this further down because it's literally like right here. So I have it for down so people can't see if they don't want to know. But yeah, like I am so attached.
I will admit that after I finished these last night, this morning I went and bought the next 10 volumes. So they are on the way to my house.
Oh, my heart. I'm so excited. I love this so much. I'm sorry it's so hard for you. That's rough. That is one thing with manga is sometimes like getting it in a certain edition or whatever is just expensive if you're not in the native country. So I get that. Mm-hmm. I guess we should get back to the series because we've basically just kind of talked about volume 1 and some of the relationships that are going on. There are some other important connections that happen within these first 3 volumes that I feel like we need to bring up. So first up, we have Anne, who is Richard's future spouse, and they form a friendship. And, you know, by the 3rd volume, their relationship is starting to move forward a little bit. And we love to see the way that is going and how Anne sees Richard in a way that Richard doesn't feel seen. So it's just this beautiful, like, way to have a friendship. But of course, Richard is pushing everyone away because Richard feels so different. Mm-hmm. The other thing we haven't talked about is how Richard goes berserk when he finds his father's head.
Yep.
Because literally, like, he goes berserk and kills everyone and everything in their way. It is brutal, and Richard is a demon at that point because all Richard sees is blood, and he needs everybody's blood.
Yep.
And that whole moment was just... That was the moment I truly became so attached to this series that there was no going back.
Yeah, you get to start to see the power-hungry nature of how Richard III is depicted in history. You get to see the bloodthirsty part of it, which I have always kind of imagined him as, because I mentioned this to you a little bit earlier today, but I didn't know a whole ton about the War of the Roses. I have been to London and I saw the Tower of London, and I was introduced to the princes in the tower. And so that was ultimately my first introduction to Richard III. Right. So trying to put my brain around the thought that this character who is all over the place is the one who ends up causing the disappearance of these 2 young boys at some point in history because of power is, you get to see the start of where that possibly is coming from. And then the idea of, hey, maybe I can be king because I am the namesake of my father, who was at one point a king. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so both parts down there as well, from what Elias is saying. So that's how we get the demon classification. Thank you for that. My history buff is continuously fact-checking me, and I love him for it. Elias can come hang out anytime on these lives. Another thing that I want to talk about is a connection that's made at the very end of Volume 3, which is the Duke of Buckingham, who plays such a massive role basically from here on out in the series. For some reason, my brain thought he was later in the series, but we meet him in Volume 3, and I'm like, oh yeah, it is this early, isn't it? Like, I have feelings about him later, but we're just going to leave those alone right now.
She knows things that are going to be happening.
By the way, Taku, thank you. Yes, I know all the things, and so I'm trying to like hold myself back. Hi, Melissa. We love to see you. But yes, like I say, I could sit here and fangirl and gush about this series forever, but I'm not going to do that because we will never get off this live, and April's husband would be very mad at me. And I like the super roommate. I don't want him to hate me. But yes, do you have any other thoughts or discussion points you want to bring up?
I think we covered all of the big major plot points that happen
Well,
within
we forgot
these
to talk
three.
about Elizabeth.
True, yes. We do have
I guess we
Elizabeth.
should talk about Elizabeth because we have Elizabeth whose husband was killed by Richard in the Berserkerness and wants revenge on the throne. And so she plots to marry the eldest, the current king, since the father is dead.
Edward. Yep.
Yes. And Edward falls for it, like hook, line, and sinker, and no one can talk him out of it. And so she's getting everything she wants at this point, and that's going to become a big thorn in everybody's side later.
He's basically dissed the kingmaker in the process.
Yes.
And so our dear beloved kingmaker is
not
now not so much on Edward's side.
Right, which is what brings the Duke of Buckingham into the picture because now he wants to be Richard's kingmaker.
Exactly.
And I have feelings and I can't share them yet. But I am happy to announce that because this was so successful and because April is so on board, we will be doing the next 3 volumes in the month of May. So we'll be doing volumes 4, 5, and 6 in May. So if you have not read it yet, you can still catch up. You can still join us because we'll just slowly be doing kind of like 3-volume chunks because it's really hard to discuss more than that at a time, especially since we'll be able to retroactively discuss other parts of these first 3 volumes as we continue forward, as things click and start to make more sense. And then it's like, oh, now we understand why this person was here, da-da-da-da-da. So we will be back with that in May, but we are going to take a break in April, and I will let April introduce our April read.
So we are going to go into Abandoned by Meg Cabot. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling. I read this first volume years ago when it first came out. I'm not even going to admit how long ago that was because
it's old. A long time.
But I do want to read through this whole series. I haven't ever done that before. So I asked Shay if she'd be okay if we brought this onto our book club. And so next month, we will be talking about
doing Abandoned, then we'll go back to Requiem of the Rose King, then we'll go back to this series, and we'll kind of alternate between the two for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Once we kind of get through those, we'll decide something else. We have one more that we'll probably do in October, considering how the previous read from this author went. I'm thinking October would be the most likely time, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah. We're still planning out the year. But for now, we'll be alternating between the Abandoned series by Meg Cabot and Requiem of the Rose King, because we know not everybody's here for manga, so we want to make sure that we're not alienating you guys for the book club, because we will still be reading books. But yes, thank you as always to April for being on with me and for even wanting to do this project. When I pitched it to her, it's like, hey, we both end up reading a lot of retelling together. Why don't we make it a book club? And she was like, yes, please, let's do it. And I'm just so grateful that she even wanted to. So it's been my longest running collaboration, but it's one that I love and adore. And April's just one of my favorite humans. So I'm just feeling mushy and just had to say that here. But anyways, that's kind of it, because we can't really say much more without spoiling further parts in the series. So we're going to leave it here for today. But thank you guys so much. I hope you guys will catch up with us and join us in May for more Requiem of the Rose King, and that you'll join us next month for Abandoned, because y'all know me and Hades and Persephone. Like, I am just a junkie for it. So I'm very excited. But quickly before we leave, April and I have become part of another collaboration with some other people. So I wanted to talk about it here briefly. We have been invited as part of the That's Comical team over on Steve over at the Lawn Gnomes channel, where we talk about comics and manga and the industry around it. And it's just this really cool thing. And it's a really fun collaboration project that April and I both enjoyed. We were both on the most recent episode. So definitely go and check that out. We are very excited for the future of that. Like there's lots of planning, lots of things moving forward with that. And it's going to be another long running collaboration, kind of like this one, but it's going to involve 6 people instead of just 2. So it's a lot of fun. You'll get a wide variety of opinions on the subject, from brand newbie to been reading things for years. So we're across the gambit here. So it's a really fun thing. So definitely go over to Steve at the Lawn Gnomes channel. Subscribe if you haven't to him so you don't miss future episodes, and check out the most recent one. I mean, it was almost 2 hours long. It was an discussion. it was a good time. But April, do you have anything fun coming up on your channel that you're excited about?
I don't think I have anything like abnormal planned at this point. At this point, I'm just trying to get my Disney coloring page done. That's like my only goal in life, because
But you got really far on it today. So you got like water and lanterns left. I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So close, like 2 more weeks.
I can feel it. I can feel it.
I feel it in my bones. For me, I've got, I'm doing a 30 and 30 manga reading challenge in April, where the goal is 30 volumes in 30 days, or a volume a day. People can do that however they need to. So if they work too much during the week, they can just stack it all up on the weekend or whatever. So that's a lot of fun. And then outside of that, I've got some fun collaborations coming up. I'm collabing a lot more with my channel, and it's a good time. Very exciting times. But yes, so I think that's everything. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys next month to talk about Abandon on April's channel. So make sure, I always try to point the wrong way. Make sure you're subbed to April so you don't miss next month. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.